Okay, here we have a square on a coordinate grid, and we're trying to find the other pieces and then to prove that those items are in fact parallel, perpendicular, and some information about the diagonals. So first, we're going to find the coordinates. If it's a square, we already noticed that from the origin over, we've gone 7 spaces. So that means the length of all the sides is 7. Since this corner is at the origin, we know that this is the ordered pair 0, 0. Now, we're going to go up 7 spaces to get to the next coordinate because we know the length is 7. So that item is going to be 0, 7 because we went over 0 spaces and up 7. From this space, we will now go over 7 spaces. So we went up 7, over 7, making this coordinate 7, 7. Okay, now we want to prove that opposite sides, so let me go ahead and label these. We're going to call this side A, side B, side C, and side D. And we want to prove that they are parallel. To do this, we're going to use the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1, and that's divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, so to do this, we're going to do, let's start with side A. We're going to do 0 minus 7 over 0 minus 0, making our slope negative 7 over 0. Now that is not possible because you can't divide by 0, so we say that this is no slope. Okay, so now we're going to look at side B over here, and we are going to do 0 minus 7 over 7 minus 7, which again gives us negative 7 over 0, which is no slope. And I'm just going to write no just to be short. And because they're the same slope, these two lines are parallel. So we can do the little parallel symbol on those, the little arrows. Okay, so now we're going to look at line C and line D. For line C, we're going to do 0 minus 0 divided by 7 minus 0, and that gives us 0 over 7. And 0 divided by any number is just 0, so this is 0 slope. And now to do side D, that is going to be 7, this 7 here, minus this 7, divided by 7 minus 0, which again gives us 0 divided by 7, which is 0. Now normally, well, first of all, C and D are also parallel because they're the same exact slope. And they would be parallel even if this was 0 over 3 because it simplifies to 0. Now, this is the trick though. Perpendicular. We want to prove that side A is perpendicular to side D. We normally would look at the slope. So let's pretend the slope was 3 over 4. For it to be perpendicular, you would have to have negative opposite slopes. So I do the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 3 over 4 is 4 over 3. And then this is negative versus this being positive. This is a trick one though. 0 and no slope are always perpendicular. 0 and no slope are always perpendicular. So we can go ahead and say that those two are perpendicular. And also you notice that they're negative reciprocals because this is negative 7 over 0 and this is 0 over 7. One other trick is you can take the two slopes, and if you multiply the two slopes together, so 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. And again, this is not the slope of any problem up here. This is just an example. And 4 times 3 is 12. Well, negative 12 divided by 12 is negative 1. If the two slopes multiplied together gives you negative 1, they are also perpendicular. So that takes care of parallel and perpendicular. Okay, so now they want to know that the diagonals are congruent and that they bisect each other. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen of all this work. Okay, and so now we need to find the diagonals. Let me pick a different color. And so we're looking for the length of this line and this line, and sorry I didn't use my straight line tool, so it's really kind of sloppy. And we need to find this midpoint here. Okay, so we're going to use the distance formula. And I'm actually going to go ahead and try to write it with a pen because it'll be a little bit faster than me typing. And the distance formula is equal to, let me pick a different color so we can see it. It is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And sorry about the handwriting. I'm writing with the mouse. Okay, so we will end up with the square root of, and this time I'm going to go ahead and type so you can see the numbers a little bit better. We're going to start with this line right here. We're going to end up with 0 minus 7, and that's going to be squared, plus 7 minus 0, and that is also going to be squared. Okay, so 0 minus 7 is negative 7 squared, which means negative 7 times negative 7, which is 49, plus 49, making it the square root. My final answer is the square root of 98. And I'm not I believe this was W and that this was Y. So line YW has a length of square root of 98. So now we're going to do line XZ, and we're going to use the same exact formula. So it is going to be the square root of 7 minus 0 squared plus 7 minus 0 plus 7 minus 0 again squared. And 7 minus 0 is 7, and 7 squared is 49, plus another 7 minus 0 squared, which is 7, and 7 times 7 is 49, which means that this also is the square root of 98. So we know both diagonals are congruent because they have the same measure. And we could simplify this. If we simplified it, it would be 2 the square root of 7. But we're just going to leave it right now because we're just comparing. So it's not really necessary to simplify all the way. And now we need to find the midpoint, this point here, to prove that these bisect each other. And for them to bisect each other, this would have to be equal to this, and this would have to be equal to this. Okay, so I'm going to clear the annotations one more time. Hopefully you were able to follow that. If not, you can like rewind and pause and play again. Okay, so I need to clear these that I typed off of the screen really quick so we have a clean screen. Okay, the midpoint formula is, and again I'm going to use the pen because I'm a little bit faster with that than the typing, is x2 plus x1 divided by 2, comma, y2 plus y1 divided by 2. Okay, so we're going to do the midpoint of this line here. So that is going to be 0 plus 7 divided by 2, comma, 7 plus 0 divided by 2. And that gives us the order pair. You can either say 3.5 or you could have left it as 7 over 2. I'm just, to type faster, I'm going to leave it as 3.5, comma, 3.5. So that's my midpoint. And then we're going to come back and we're now going to find the midpoint of this line here. Let me switch colors. We're going to find the midpoint of this line here. Okay, so this is going to be 7 plus 0 divided by 2, comma, 7 plus 0 divided by 2, which again, 7 plus 0 is 7, divided by 2 is 7 over 2, or if we did it as a decimal, it would be 3.5, comma, 3.5. And so we need to, let me draw in the diagonals really fast. We need to, two different colors. Okay, so we need to show that this piece here is congruent to this piece, and that this piece here is congruent to this piece. And we know that this center piece is 3.5, comma, 3.5, and we proved it in both directions that that's the midpoint of it. And so that they bisect each other. So, all right, we're again going to use the distance formula, which we used a couple minutes ago, which, so we're going to do the square root of, I'm going to do, let me go ahead and type this, is the square root of 0 plus 3.5 and that's going to be squared. Oh, I forgot that that's minus. I typed that wrong, sorry. And then plus 7 minus 3.5, and that's going to be squared as well. Okay, so 0 minus 3.5 is 3.5, negative 3.5, and negative 3.5 times negative 3.5. That one I don't know off the top of my head, so I'm going to take out the calculator just to show you. So I'm going to do 3.5. In the distance formula, even if it works out to be negative, you have to square the negative, so you can ignore when it turns out negative. I'm going to square that, and that's 12.25. So that's 12.25. And this is going to be 7 minus 3.5 squared, which is also going to be 3.5 squared, so plus 12.25, which brings it to 24.5, which when I take the square root of that is going to be close to 5 because the square root of 25 is 5. But we can go ahead and do plus 12.25 so you can see equals, and I'm going to square root it, and it's 4.9. So the length of this line is 4.9. I'm then going to find the length of this line, which is going to be 7, the 7 here, minus the 3.5, and then 0 minus the 3.5 and square it, and I'll get the same exact answer, 24.5. And then to continue, you would do the same for this part of the line and this part of the line, and you would notice all of them end up being 4.9, or the square root of 24.5. I'm hoping that all this makes sense, and if you still have questions, just call back or email.